I'm Christy Schreiber, and we're here to discuss books that have changed the world and have changed us.
And I'm Gary Schreiber, and this is the How to Love Lit podcast. This episode, we're going to venture away into a genre that has been close to my heart since I was a teenager, which is rock music. Today, we discuss the lyrics, the music, and the resurgence of the 1990s rock band sensation, Creed.
I think we need to explain why we're venturing into a 90s rock band on a literature podcast, beyond just, of course, your love, Gary, for rock music. Not that your passion isn't reason enough. By the way, Gary is a local musician here in Memphis, and these days he's a guitarist for a local country band. In case you're looking for one, they play weddings, parties, events, restaurants, that sort of thing, so you can always contact us. But Gary, because he's a guitarist, loves Creed because of their guitarist, Mark Tremonti, who is one of the best there is. But as good a reason as that is, that's not the reason we're featuring them. We're featuring them because they are a phenomenon that just cannot be explained by a guitarist, not even the best guitarist or even a singer. There is no one element. We're featuring them because they have contributed not only to the field of guitar, but to our field as well. This summer, Creed came to Memphis, and because Gary loves Mark Tremonti, we went. Now, we've gone to reunion rock concerts before. They're a lot of fun, and honestly, reunion tours are family affairs. I mean, parents want to introduce their kids to the music of their childhood and their world, and there's that vibe. You know, it's nostalgic, a return to the 70s, 80s, or in this case, the 90s. However, the Creed concert was different, and it kind of shocked us. Gen Zers were all over the FedEx Forum. That's our local arena. And they weren't there with their parents. They were there because they had discovered Creed on their own, and they knew all those old 90s songs. They weren't bonding with their parents. They loved the music. They were connecting the words, the music, the rock experience to their lives, and it was evident. Everyone was standing up the entire time, singing the words by heart, raising their hands in the air. I'll post a couple of the videos that I took on Instagram. You can see what I mean. For us, it was unexpected but fun to watch. And it made me ask the question, what is it about the music of Creed that connects across generations?
Well, Christy, I think the term is stamped. Creed has been stamped by Gen Z. They have been rediscovered. And this may not be a surprise to a lot of people, primarily because of TikTok, but somehow TikTok discovered Creed, and many of Creed's old performances, including their iconic 2001 Super Bowl halftime show, have gone viral, introducing Gen Z to the 90s band. But what stands out is that Gen Z embraced the Creed movement, and shall I say, they embraced it with arms wide open.
By the way, that's one of their songs.
Yeah, well, Creed's 2025 Summer of 99 tour, the one that we were a part of, sold out in most venues. But I cannot fail to mention that the whole Creed resurgence isn't just surprising. It's completely ironic for those who can remember Creed back in the day. And I just want to go back and highlight the point that stamped is the phenomenon that we're talking about. We have a generation now, because they have access to all of the music through, digital platforms of all kinds. They get to hear all of it, and they go out and they personally revive bands now. I think it's super interesting sociological phenomenon.
Well, Creed, like Nickelback, if you've heard of that band, during their heyday, actually got canceled. And that was before canceled was a thing that we had a name for. And they weren't canceled because of a political position. They weren't canceled because of anything inappropriate. They were canceled basically because the music media turned them into a joke. Their music was overplayed on the radio. It was kind of melodramatic, and it just became easy to turn them into what today we might call a meme. But again, those kind of words, canceled, meme, those things didn't exist in the 90s. Music critics, especially for various reasons, and we'll get into a little bit, made fun of them on TV, in magazines. And eventually, they literally became an international joke.
Well, and what's interesting, we're calling them a 90s band, but they really primarily were featured in the very early 2000s when they had most of their hits. And, they were brutalized. And honestly, it was mostly a creation by the media. But lots of people got in on it after a while. And, and even though it seemed like the whole world did. And Entertainment Weekly said they were the lunk-headed kegger rock sculpted from tiresome grunge riffs and aggressive discharge.
I mean, that's almost a poetic insult.
I mean, music critics write junk like that. They don't have a good ear for music anyway. The L.A. Times called them grunge twice removed. They were called a knockoff grunge band. And it was this kind of thing that was nonstop on television and in major music magazines and on the radio. And remember, this is really before the internet was much of a thing or Twitter would have just gone nuts with it. And it kind of proves my point. People love a winner until they don't.
I know.
And people get really angry when you win too much.
Well, and that begs the question, why did the critics hate them? I mean, what was it about them? I mean, there are other bands that didn't have that experience.
Well, if you ask Scott Stapp, their lead singer, which many have done over the years, he believes it was because they weren't really what a grunge band was supposed to be. Grunge bands weren't supposed to sell a lot of records. They were supposed to be grassrootsy, at least not at first, of the people. And they weren't supposed to be polished or centered around power ballads. And he believes Creed just didn't seem like it just emerged from a dark Seattle club or a seedy garage. And they were punished for that. And there are other theories, but, he's right about their roots. Creed was grunge rock, but grunge rock for the mainstream, not for people who were just only into grunge rock. And their music was popular, and Creed had 8 straight #1 hits, and they were on the radio 24/7, and they were overexposed and overplayed. And after Scott Stapp, their lead singer, started struggling openly with addiction, they were easy to make fun of. And Stapp did a lot to hurt his own reputation, but combining his public embarrassing antics, overly inflated ego, and their overexposure, they had a target on their back. And the music industry, along with the entire world, had fun shooting metaphorical darts at them to the point that Rolling Stone had a readers' poll where they were literally voted the worst band of the 90s. So they went from #1 to being considered the literal worst. How the mighty have fallen, and they did fall. And I want to point this out about music listeners. Music listeners are particularly guilty of wanting to be esoteric. They're particularly guilty of thinking they are insightful and have very specific knowledge into music. And so they're the first to hate a popular band.
Well, it was rough. And all of this, ironically, while having #1 hits, which is just so weird. But then again, so is Scott Stapp's behavior when he was struggling with addiction. I mean, if you ask other sources why Creed became a big joke, they do put the blame on Stapp. I mean, he was easy to make fun of. He had a very exaggerated singing style, which that was in itself was easy to pick on, and SNL specifically did. But a lot of his lyrics were borrowed from biblical allusions, so people called them a pseudo-Christian band, which they didn't really like that. And especially since Stapp, who wrote, all their lyrics, was not living what people would call a Christian lifestyle. But finally, it was just the craziness of Stapp's public life. At one point, Stapp was so drunk on stage, he literally couldn't perform. He laid down and appeared to go to sleep. One of the fans literally sued them for breach of contract. So if Stapp couldn't remember the lyrics and is literally rolling around drunk on the stage, they kind of deserve to be made fun of. And they certainly were deserving of being sued. At least that's what that one fan thought.
Well, rough is a good word to describe Scott Stapp's journey through fame, but really his entire life experience was rough, just in different ways. And I know it's hard to feel sorry for a successful rock star who made millions of dollars selling music, but his story, like all of our stories, if we're honest, is very complicated.
Well, I would like to argue that it's because of his personal and professional life being so bumpy that he was willing to write about that people could identify with some of the human experience. I mean, Stapp's music doesn't blame other.
Hi, I'm Darina, co-founder of Quo. You might know us as OpenPhone. My dad is a business owner, and growing up, he always kept his ringtone super loud so he'd never miss a customer call. That stuck with me. When we started Quo, our mission was to help businesses not just stay in touch, but make every customer feel valued, no matter when they might call. Quo gives your team business phone numbers to call and text on your phone or computer. Your calls, messages, and contacts live in one workspace, so your team can stay fully aligned and reply faster. And with our AI agent answering 24/7, you'll really never miss a customer. Over 90,000 businesses use Quo. Get 20% off at quo.com/tech. That's quo.com/tech. And we can port your existing numbers over for free. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers.
Why does every recipe I try need 18 ingredients, including a jar of something paste I'll never use again, but will sit in my fridge for 9 months? I just want dinner in the oven, fast. That's why I love Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals. They send you fresh ingredients that are already chopped. All you do is put it all together and bake. That's it. No chopping, no weird leftovers, just delicious, easy-to-make meals. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Thank you for calling the Bombas Comfort Line. Bombas make socks, slippers, tees, and underwear made with the highest quality materials. Press 1 for comfort, 2 for style, 3 for donation. You chose style. Bombas has styles for whatever you enjoy. You can run in Bombas, lounge in Bombas, dress them up, dress them down, but always give back in Bombas. Because with every item purchased, another is donated. Bombas, comfort worth calling for. Go to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO.
People for his problems, even though people could say there are people to blame. Stapp's music is very introspective, and the lyrics he wrote as he looked at his own mess rang true. It rings true. And what's great about these lyrics is that they're not negative. They speak of redemption because life is bumpy, and Stapp lived that. But that doesn't mean just because life is bumpy that it's not worth living.
Well, after Creed's very rapid rise to fame, and likely because of Stapp's antics, honestly, they had a very public and embarrassing decline. And by 2012, the band had broken up, and Scott Stapp, their lead singer and songwriter, was left by his band members who went on to form a different band without Stapp. And they started Alter Bridge, which is still a working and highly successful band, and a great band, I might add. And Stapp was alone to confront a very public struggle with addiction and an actual psychotic break. And according to Stapp, and I'll quote him, "I was so out of my mind, delusional, turned on everyone that I loved, made wild and crazy accusations about my wife. I thought I was being followed by the government. I mean, it was a manic, paranoid, psychotic episode. I was driving around with a 12-gauge shotgun in my lap, and I thought that people were trying to kill me. I would have maybe a 45-second interval of what's going on, and then I'd be right back into the psychosis," he added. So finally, his wife, Jacqueline, said she was leaving and taking his kids with him, and this was in 2014. And this got his attention, and in fact, he credits her in helping him get on the path to sobriety, and he did. But that doesn't automatically mean you get back everything you lost, and at that point, it was almost everything. And Jacqueline filed for divorce, but when he checked into rehab, she gave him another chance. After therapy and reconnecting with his childhood Christian faith, Stapp really pulled himself out of his downward spiral.
10 years later, he's still sober. And we're here because Stapp is back, and so is Creed. They're together again and are rediscovered by Gen Z, mostly because of TikTok, but that's not the only reason. There are other reasons, and I want to point out one, and that would be baseball.
Oh, naturally.
In 2023, the baseball team, the Texas Rangers, informally adopted the band by playing their song Higher before games. You know, this tradition, and baseball's full of these kind of traditions, brought the team good luck and a winning streak. So they kept it up. And they won playing their song all the way to the World Series. When the Rangers won the World Series, guess what they did? Of course, they sang their favorite Creed song, higher in the clubhouse while pouring champagne and beer all over each other's heads. I mean, you can watch that. That's a clip on Facebook that you can see. They went to the White House to meet President Biden, and the White House Orchestra played Creed. They played higher as they entered the hall to meet the president, and it even landed on the 2024 Super Bowl commercial. So the question becomes, why? Why Creed? What does this old rock band from the 90s have to say that resonates today?
And that is the question, because all good literature resonates across time. And I should add that Creed isn't the only rock band embraced by the TikTok crowd. And although it's not all rock music, there is a resurgence of rock music in general. And a lot of that is a reaction to digital music. And most Gen Zers have been raised on digital music. I mean, it's perfect, but that's because it's highly produced. And rock music is different because it's raw, it's imperfect, but it's emotional. And I have to use one of my favorite words, especially when it comes to the guitar. Rock music is unique because of something called tone. It's a very important and distinctive part of rock music, and this is true for any rock band, but it's certainly true for Creed, and they're a great example. And tone is what makes rock music authentic. It is the individual tone sounds, whether they are being sung or being played by an electric guitar, that allows the performer to build emotion into the words. And, you know, a large part of rock music is the performance, and that hinges on the tone. Eric Clapton famously once said that he wanted to play with such intensity that it would cause his listeners to weep. You know, that kind of emotional reaction, no matter what emotion you're trying to express, is what rock music is about. We can't say that enough. So the music itself, the tones, they're thoughtfully constructed to be very emotional. That emotion might be pain or rage, or as in the case of Creed's song Higher, you know, the emotion in the tone is an uplifting transcendence. And the tone of the voice or the tone of guitar, it's crafted to combine with the lyrics to make the listener somewhere emotionally, or to take them somewhere emotionally that he can't get to on his own. And secondly, another important characteristic of rock music is loudness and rhythm. This is what gets rockers in so much trouble with their mothers, if they're playing in their bedrooms or out in a garage like I did when I was in high school. So rockers want to turn up the music and the amps to a high level, because there's nothing greater than feeling the hair on your arms get blown back when you strike a chord on a guitar.
Well, I've noticed this. I've seen it in Back to the Future. But, I mean, even grown men, not kids, they love to turn up the music and listen to rock music so loud. Why?
Well, it's a feature of the art. Rock music should be felt by the body more than judged by the mind. A successful rock song is one that you feel. You literally physically feel in your stomach, in your bones. You feel those tones and those words, and they arouse your emotions, but your body should also literally feel the music because of the physical vibrations. And that happens in your gut, in your muscles, in the sinews of your arms and legs. That's the design of it. That's what people go to concerts to experience. It is not accidentally loud. It is supposed to be loud. And the physical sensation is the intended effect. And that's why people like to dance to it and jump up to it. And a sign of a bad rock band is that the beat is not quite right and you don't want to jump up and dance to it. A rock song can be bad even if the correct time signature or the tempo is carefully observed. You know, the song has to be performed the right way, with the right tones, with the right rhythm, and with the right loudness. And the artist, this is getting so esoteric, but the artist has to be a master of timing, knowing whether they're going to play the beat or ahead of the beat or behind the beat. You know, now I'm not saying rock music is the only genre where rhythm is important. That's obviously not true, but it is certainly an essential element to this art. And performing rock music is obviously a unique art. So if you have good tone, if you have good rhythm, if you have loudness, then bam, you're ready. And if you're honest enough to tell the story of the human experience, just maybe you can create your own rock song.
So that's all you have to do?
Well, it's not for everyone, that's for sure. You have to be talented.
Well, obviously, this is best experienced in a group, and I guess that's why rock concerts sell out, and they're fun to go to. And I felt my chest pound. We even took earplugs because you knew to do that. And I honestly didn't know much about Creed before the concert, but I felt the energy. I felt the love of the people standing around me. It's just one of those things, the guitar riff, Stapp's vocals, the drummers, the light show, on and on it goes, not to mention tone, rhythm. But now let's talk lyrics. And I want to start with that hit that we talked about, Higher, the one that the Texas Rangers liked.
Okay. Well, to get there, let's go back a little bit farther because Higher wasn't Creed's first hit. Their first hit song was called My Own Prison. It was 1995, and they were two Florida State students. And Scott Stapp and Mark Tremonti, they just wanted to play music and write lyrics. And they started by cold calling bars and playing gigs in the Tallahassee area. And they were popular, and they built a local following. This is the story of so many bands, you know. The next step was to record something. So they borrowed $6,000 from their bassist parents and recorded and produced an album themselves, and they called it My Own Prison. But if you self-produce, it's on you to self-market, and they did. They hustled around town. They got local record stores to take it on consignment, and they sold all 5,000 copies. And it was kind of a local hit, and they were growing. They booked local shows, and these impressively attracted crowds that went into the thousands. And they started traveling a little more and also started attracting attention by some of the big labels. And they were eventually signed with a new label called Wind Up, and they were Wind Up's first band. And this was good fortune for both Alan Meltzer and the owner of the label, as well as Creed itself. And they re-released My Own Prison, and this time it was a national hit, and they watched their music take off, and they got famous, and they got rich. However, everyone thought, maybe even including them, that they were the classic one-hit wonder. There's a club for that, by the way. And you can make a Spotify playlist of one-hit wonders. And according to Mark Tremonti, they were in Tallahassee in a local venue called Floyd's Music Store, which ironically was a place where they had signed their first record deal. And Stapp looked over at Tremonti on stage and said, "Let's write something live." And Tremonti said he'd been threatening to do that for a while. So when he wanted to create something on stage, Tremonti had some melodies and some riffs ready. He played a chorus, and Stapp started singing "Can You Take Me Higher?" And they just started putting Stapp's words and Tremonti's music together right there on the stage in front of a crowd.
And that's just crazy to me. They just made up Higher there on the stage.
Well, you know, they're going to refine it some, but it's born there. And in a sense, Tremonti wrote the music and Stapp had the lyrics, but that they put that song together there in front of a crowd, and it just worked. And neither the music nor the lyrics came out of nowhere, though. In the case of these lyrics, Stapp talks about the song being inspired by a reoccurring nightmare that he'd had. In the nightmare, he was being chased down the road by a man with a gun. And in the dream, he would turn left below an overpass, find a pillar to hide behind, but would end up getting shot, which is a terrible recurring dream. And getting shot would wake him up, and he'd wake up terrified. And unfortunately, the dream kept coming back over and over again, and apparently for a long time, until Stapp tried a technique called lucid dreaming that he found in a book about Hindu monks.
So what is lucid dreaming?
Well, we're getting psychological now, huh? It's basically this idea that you can remain asleep but control what happens in your dreams. And maybe you can think of it as being aware that you're dreaming. And if you know you're dreaming, you can control what happens in your dream and the outcomes. And these dreams were kind of freaking him out, and he definitely wanted to do something. And apparently he was successful. The method worked. At one point he had the dream, but he was able to change it. And this time he got to the overpass and escaped, thus inspiring the song Higher.
Well, you can't tell that from the lyrics.
No, you really can't. And lots of people have made this song to be about a lot of different things because of this recurring nightmare. And that's kind of the genius of it. And as it is genius in all written work, it's ambiguous enough for people to make it about their lives, their careers. their relationships, whatever is on their mind. But in Stapp's case, people have speculated that it was about his drug use or his faith, but really it was literally about a dream.
Well, let's take a look at the lyrics. I mean, I'll put my English hat on and we'll just read them. We won't think about guitar tones or sound or loudness, rhythm. What do we get? Those are things we get from the music, but let's think about the words and let's ask the question, why do these words resonate with so many people at 20 or so years later?
And I would like to point out how interesting it's going to be to read these lyrics without the melody. When dreaming, I'm guided to another world time and time again. At sunrise, I fight to stay asleep because I don't want to leave the comfort of this place. Because there's a hunger, a longing to escape from the life I live when I'm awake. So let's go there. Let's make our escape. Come on, let's go there. Let's ask, can we stay? Can you take me higher to a place where blind men see? Can you take me higher to a place with golden streets?
So a couple of things. Obviously, there's ambiguity in the text, starting with the first line. And that means when you're ambiguous, you're not clear about what you mean. And sometimes that's not good. If you go to the doctor, you don't want him to be ambiguous about what disease you have. But in literature, authors use ambiguity for different things. They do it on purpose. And it's not because they can't be clear. Of course, we talk about this quite a lot, but let's look at the first line. If we know the story, we know he's literally talking about physically dreaming. The way he writes it, though, leaves it open. Maybe it's a literal dream, but it could be a figurative dream. Like, I'm dreaming for a better life. I'm dreaming of a relationship, something like that.
And that's very common in rock music, or really all music. The author wants you to be able to put your life into his music, into the song. That way, you're not singing about Stapp, you're singing about yourself, and that's the hook.
And then again, we see the tension of the text, the idea of not wanting to leave where we're at, but also wanting to escape where we're at. I want to point out that when he writes in the first person plural, can we stay? He doesn't say, not I can stay. He switches to the second person for the chorus. Can you take me higher? And we have to wonder, who is he talking to? And I can see why people thought maybe he's talking about God, specifically maybe Jesus Christ, because he drops in two biblical allusions. In the New Testament, it was Jesus who made blind people see. And Jesus is the one who spoke about preparing streets of gold in heaven for those who believe in him. So if you take him literally, this could be a prayer. But if you take him figuratively, you're comparing whoever you're thinking of to Jesus, to a person who can save, to a person who can cure, to the person who can take us to heaven. This song can literally be read both ways. So let's finish the song.
Although I would like our world to change, it helps me to appreciate those nights and those dreams. But my friend, I'd sacrifice all those nights if I could make the earth and my dreams the same. The only difference is to let love replace all our hate. So let's go there. Let's make our escape. Come on, let's go there. Let's ask, can we stay?
Of course, this second verse takes a different direction. He's not talking about himself. He's universalizing his experience. He's talking about the whole world. He wants our world to change. He'd like to change the outcome of our world like he changed the outcome of his dream that was terrifying him. In this verse, he talks about being able to create a world where love replaces hate, and he uses the word sacrifice, which, of course, is the definition of love. If you love someone, you're willing to sacrifice for that person. And he'd like to be able to make a sacrifice that could bring love to the world. And he invites whoever he's talking to do that with them.
Of course, we don't know what this sacrifice could be.
No, it's ambiguous. But a sacrifice means you're giving up something on purpose. As a listener, as a reader, or if we're singing as the singer, we have to answer that question for ourselves. What would that sacrifice be? What could we give up? What are we willing to give up? And would our sacrifice produce heaven? So the application for the Texas Rangers is that their sacrifice would produce a World Series win. And it did. I don't know how other people have interpreted the lines, but whatever heaven is defined, or as you define it, that's the dream here. That's the gold streets. That's blind men seeing. And of course, the song ends with him singing the refrain over and over again.
Can you take me higher to a place where blind men see? Can you take me higher to a place with golden streets? So let's go there. Yeah, let's go there. Come on, let's go there. Let's ask, can we stay? Up high, I feel like I'm alive for the very first time. Set up high, I'm strong enough to take these dreams and make them mine. Set up high, I'm strong enough to take these dreams and make them mine. Can you take me higher to a place where blind men see? Can you take me higher to a place with golden streets? Can you take me higher to a place where blind men see? Can you take me higher to a place with golden streets?
Well, their sacrifice did pay off, and they did go higher. It wouldn't be 2 years before Creed was playing in venues like Madison Square Gardens and winning awards and making millions of dollars. During the 90s, they sold over 30 million albums. They won some of music's most prestigious awards, like the 2002 Billboard Music Band of the Year. In 1999, they released their second album called Human Clay, and it was a breakout commercial success. Debuted at number 1. It was on the Billboard's 200, and its single Higher stayed on the top 100 for an impressive 57 weeks.
And it wasn't the only or even the biggest hit on that album. The third single from that album, With Arms Wide Open, won the Grammy for Best Rock Song. And again, the lyrics were written by Scott Stapp, and the music was written by Mark Tremonti. What's unique about the song is that Stapp wrote it after learning he was going to become a father. He had had an abusive childhood, which is awful by any definition, but what made his particular abuse even worse is that it was done in the name of God. His stepfather used religion and in the name of the Christian faith physically and verbally abused Scott until he eventually ran away from home. And when Stapp learned he was going to become a father himself, the emotions flooded in as he wanted to do better, be better, and build a better home for his son, and better than what he had experienced, but also better than he was actually living out himself.
Well, today he has 4 children, but his oldest son, Jagger, from his first marriage, is who originally inspired the song. Jagger, and of course, just like Higher, Arms Wide Open is ambiguous enough to be referencing any number of situations, but it's actually less ambiguous than Higher. And lots of people, men especially, have taken it to mean exactly how Stapp intended, the great adventure of bringing new life into the world.
And all the responsibilities that come along with that adventure, be it expected or unexpected. Again, this is a very positive song.
And I'll read you the lyrics. Well, I just heard the news today. It seems my life is going to change. I close my eyes, begin to pray, then tears of joy stream down my face. With arms wide open under the sunlight, welcome to this place. I'll show you everything with arms wide open, with arms wide open. Well, I don't know if I'm ready to be the man I have to be. I'll take a breath. I'll take her by my side. We stand in awe. We've created life with arms wide open under the sunlight. Welcome to this place. I'll show you everything with arms wide open. Now everything has changed. I'll show you love. I'll show you everything with arms wide open, with arms wide open. I'll show you everything. Oh yeah, with arms wide open, wide open. If I just had one wish, only one demand, I hope he's not like me. I hope he understands that he can take his life and hold it by the hand, and he can greet the world with arms wide open under the sunlight. Welcome to this place. I'll show you everything with arms wide open. Now everything has changed. I'll show you love. I'll show you everything with arms wide open, with arms wide open. I'll show you everything. Oh yeah, with arms wide open, wide open.
There is certainly a lot of repetition in this song, which I know is a literary technique. But in rock music, in all music in general, repetition is a powerful tool to create emotion. And all good music is emotional. If music is not emotional, you will not care about it. You will not listen. So music without emotion is just not interesting. And we can't talk about the emotion of rock music without bringing up the power ballad. Now, I would like to point this out, too, about this repetition. The chorus is called the hook, and it's designed to be repeated at least 4 times in a pop music song, maybe even more. There's a songwriting phrase that goes, "Don't bore us, get to the chorus."
Well, let's get back to that term. What is a power ballad?
So, a power ballad is music that's slower in tempo. Ballads have rich harmonies, and they're often stories about love or loss, and they're highly emotional and they draw in their listeners because of their openness about their feelings. So in rock, we have what have been called power ballads, which is a subcategory of ballads, and they're slower in tempo, they have harmonies, they're about emotion. But a power ballad increases in intensity over the course of the song. They escalate. So they may start with an acoustic instrument or, something light, but then over the course of the song, the sounds will get bigger and bigger as the emotions grow, and it may switch from acoustic to electric, or even an entire orchestra may kick in with drums, and singers will start singing softly, but then will hit those high notes, and really the boom with exploding in emotion and suspense and surprise, and these kinds of things which take the listener to the climax of the song. Now, we can think of Whitney Houston singing Dolly Parton's song, I Will Always Love You, not necessarily a rock song, but a lot of rock ballads follow this format. And Stapp's song follows this basic style. He starts softly thinking about a father's awe at becoming a father and the vulnerability of having a baby, but then Stapp's voice is going to build up. And if you listen to the band, the music swells up in intensity. As they get to the chorus, the guitar tone is often really an important feature as Tremonti uses it to create this overwhelming emotion of becoming a parent and the responsibility of introducing the entire world to a new person. I mean, the whole song builds an intensity.
Well, and it's positive. It focuses on love, change, redemption, and these are all positive emotions. So, do all rock bands have power ballads?
No, they don't, but many do. Lots do. Guns N' Roses, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, everybody had to write them in the 80s and 90s, but they all had popular power ballads, and they're still popular today. But now we have Bruno Mars and Christina Aguilera and Adele, and they all have hits that are power ballads. And power ballads are emotional experiences, and when the emotions are large, like the birth of a child, a power ballad can put it into words about how we feel about it.
Well, the last song I want to highlight is Gen Z's favorite Creed song by far, if you look at the numbers on Spotify. It's called One Last Breath. It's Creed's most streamed song. It's also its most introspective, and it comes from their third album called Weathered. It's much darker, and now we know that at this point in Stapp's life, he was really struggling with his mental health. Knowing that helps you interpret what he meant when he wrote the song. But again, it's ambiguous. So this can be about anyone's experience with depression or even something else. So let's look at the lyrics as we finish our discussion on Creed and just see what it is about this great rock classic that is connected so deeply with the post-COVID world.
Please come now, I think I'm falling. I'm holding on to all I think is safe. It seems I found the road to nowhere and I'm trying to escape. I yelled back when I heard thunder, but I'm down to one last breath, and with it let me say, hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge and I'm thinking, maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. I'm looking down now that it's over, reflecting on all of my mistakes. I thought I found the road to somewhere in His grace. I cried out, heaven save me, but I'm down to one last breath, and with it, let me say.
So let me interrupt you. The tone of the song is very different when you look at the words from the other song. This is sad. And immediately, when we say 6 feet under, we're thinking about caskets, because that's how far they go in the ground. So this song is obviously alluding to death, but he says, I'm falling, I'm holding on. So is this literal or is it metaphorical?
Hold me now, I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking that maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. Hold me now, I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. I'm so far down.
So we see this struggle, this will to live versus the despair or regret or a desire to quit. There's a lot of repetition. The speaker struggles with two very polar opposite ideas.
Sad eyes follow me, but I still believe there's something left for me. So please come stay with me, because I believe there's something left for you and me, for you and me, for you and me.
Sad eyes follow me? Are these eyes of judgment, disappointment? Are they filled with love? Again, ambiguity. But now we're into the second person. The speaker is asking the person to come stay. The speaker still believes.
Hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge and I'm thinking, hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. Hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. Please come now. I think I'm falling and I'm holding on to all I think is safe.
I'm going to guess what people like about this song, or at least what I like about the song, is that even though it's a very sad song and there is this huge feeling of isolation and guilt, the song doesn't end like that. Hold me now. It's a shift. We introduce hope. Maybe it's a prayer to God. Maybe it's a plea to a person who isn't giving up on the speaker. But there's definitely grace here. There's light in the darkness, and there is a sense that this person isn't going to plunge into the 6 feet below. And that is what we want to believe. We want to believe that even when we get to that place where we look into a pit, a moral pit, a physical collapse, the edge of a grave, there is someone there, someone to help make a place of safety, a place free of judgment, a place of grace, and a place of hope.
And of course, sometimes life takes us to that place, and maybe through our own actions, maybe through the actions of others. But in Creed, what we see is a sense of personal responsibility, looking at reality and finding grace to move forward. And that, of course, is the redemption story that has defined so much of Western culture and Western literature, be it, confession leading to restoration, repentance leading to transcendence, or suffering that leads to enlightenment.
It's the story we love to tell over and over again, but this time with an electric guitar, a power ballad, a drum roll, if that's what you call it, and of course, rhythm and tone.
It is the story that we do love to retell over and over. So, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed learning a little about the rock band Creed. If you haven't heard of them before, we hope you go to YouTube and watch a couple of their music videos to see what we're talking about. And if you have an artist you think would fit what we do, don't hesitate to write us. We'd love to know what modern poets are crafting our understanding of the world. And as always, you can find us on social media, YouTube, and of course, our website, howtolovelitpodcast.com. Thanks for listening and for helping us make great literature accessible and enjoyable to as many people as possible.
Peace out.
Hey, I'm Paige DeSorbo, and I'm always thinking about underwear.
I'm Hannah Berner, and I'm also thinking about underwear, but I prefer full coverage. I like to call them my granny panties.
Actually, I never think about underwear. That's the magic of Tommy John.
Same. They're so light and so comfy, and if it's not comfortable, I'm not wearing it.
And the bras, soft, supportive, and actually breathable.
Yes, Lord knows the girls need to breathe. Also, I need my PJs to breathe and be buttery soft and stretchy enough for my dramatic tossing and turning at night. That's why I live in my Tommy John pajamas.
Plus, they're so cute because they fit perfectly.
Put yourself on to Tommy John.
Upgrade your drawer with Tommy John. Save 25% for a limited time at TommyJohn.com/comfort. See site for details.
GEHA was started by postal employees in 1937. Today, we offer exclusive health plans for all federal employees and retirees. GEHA. Find your federal health plan at GEHA.com.
Life is unpredictable, but how you prepare for the unexpected shouldn't be. Take ownership of your life planning with Policy Genius to help your loved ones have a financial safety net in case something happens to you. Whether to cover debts and routine expenses or even invest the money and earn interest over time. With Policy Genius, finding and buying life insurance is simple. You can compare quotes from top insurers and could find coverage that fits your needs and your budget. Plus, they offer life insurance policies starting at just $276 a year for $1 million in coverage. It's an easy way to feel good about and plan for the future. No wonder Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. Don't wait for life to make other plans. Protect your family today. Head to PolicyGenius.com to compare top-rated life insurance policies, get your lowest quote, and make a smart move in under 10 minutes. That's PolicyGenius.com.